power, well, that's complicated too, but there was this, you can correct my pronunciation, you just can't snicker at it. Gleichaltung, is that close enough? Gleichaltung. The bringing into line, in other words, the Nazis had this program, the whole country was supposed to get themselves, was to be brought into line with the program. And Heidegger says, let's, in this telegram to Hitler, look, let's postpone this election for the directorship. So one of the things that happened is they redrew the constitution of the university so that they would allow the rector to be appointed by the state minister of culture rather than the university senate. Actually, the university senate had elected somebody. Heidegger basically put a kibosh on that and got himself appointed. He was now the first, the title was changed, it was not just rector, it was the rector Führer. The rectoral address, Heidegger's rectoral address, has been published before. For a while it was thought to be fairly innocuous, like, oh well, there's nothing too much here that's Nazi-like. But that's not true, it's not innocuous. It's supposed to be about academic freedom, but it starts off by saying academic freedom is being banished by the university only because it means lack of restraint in what was done. Freedom will unfold from the bonds of the German student, which binds them to the community, the honor and destiny of the nation, and the spiritual mission of the German people, which is tied to blood and earth, Blut und Boden. This was a Nazi slogan, which Heidegger incorporates into his rectoral address. And being a philosopher, actually a lot of the rectoral address is about Greek philosophy. And he ends with a quote from Plato, from the Republic. That's the Greek. And this episbalo is one of the contentious. Well, it's not contentious, it's perfectly clear what it means. Two translations. By the way, the quote comes, Plato says, oh, we'll have philosophers being kings and philosophy will rule the state. Gee, I wonder whether how long that will last. And then he writes this in Greek, translated, for all great things are precarious, meaning, we tried this great thing, but Jowett, all great attempts are attended with risk. And Heidegger decides to translate it as, all that is great stands in the storm. Now, that quote says nothing about a storm. I mean, there's nothing right about this translation. I mean, the sense is greatness is precarious. He says greatness can stand in the storm. Well, where does the storm come from? There were, in his rectoral address, an audience of students, faculties, and essay, the Sturm Abteilung, literally storm section, better known as the stormtroopers in brown shirts. And after the rectoral address, there was a big torchlight parade, stormtroopers and students and so on. Heidegger tried to clean up his reputation. He gave an interview to the German newspaper Der Spiegel in 1966 on the condition that it not be published until his death, which was 10 years later. And that interview was published. Der Spiegel asked him about the book burnings at the university, and Heidegger says the following: I forbade the book burning that was planned to take place in front of the main university building. That's technically true. Basically, Heidegger says, don't burn it in front of the main university building. We'll do it in the stadium. At which he spoke. And he says, flame announced to us, light up for us, show us the path in which there is no turning back. I'm going to skip some of these. We'll see more of this kind of quote. Another speech he gives, let not propositions and ideas be the rules of your being, and nothing for a philosopher to say. pure alone is the present and future German reality and its law. Learn to know ever more deeply that from now on every single thing demands decision and every action responsibility. Heil Hitler. This is blood under the bridge, but I mean, it seems to me when you see some of the things Heidegger did and said, that rather than that he might have been bumped up to one of these more serious cases, I don't know. But this is what principally I want to talk about. Whether there's a connection between his Nazism, which is fairly clear, and this influential, albeit difficult and some would say unreadable work, Being in Time. And there's two schools of thought, or two ways you can approach this. One is you can say that his politics and philosophy are just separate. Jean Bouffray, I mentioned him before, he says Heidegger's Nazism is a detail. Hannah Arendt, who was Heidegger's, she and Heidegger were lovers for a few years. She's Jewish. She just refers to it as, well, it was an error. And Richard Rorty, who's written on Heidegger, kind of puts it in a nutshell. Heidegger was a resentful, ungenerous, disloyal, and deceitful man. But, on the other hand, he somehow managed to write books that are as powerful and original as Spinoza's or Hegel's. So that's one school of thought. The other is that Heidegger's Nazism and his philosophy are somehow of a piece. And this is endorsed by this Chilean guy, Farias, and a fellow, the more recent book, Emmanuel Fay. And that's the one I want to look at more closely. An extremely brief outline of Fay's book. Chapter 1 is a claim about Nazi thought and Being in Time. And the rest of the book contains excerpts and quotes from Heidegger's speeches, lectures, and seminars from 1933 to 40. There's a tangle here. Some of these have come out in the complete works. I think they're still under the editorship, the complete works of Heidegger's son. Some of them haven't and don't seem to be planned to be coming out of them. They're rather incriminating, although some of the stuff that's come out is incriminating also. There's a mess here in the complete works, but Fay has been quoting from unpublished sources. One thing that's clear is that these texts, most of which are seminars, but there's some speeches and writings, these texts extol National Socialist thought. That's undeniable. They're very explicit. You don't have to read between the lines. You don't have to put them in context and say, well, in itself this is innocuous, but in saying this in 1935, well, I mean, nothing like that. It's just, it's up front. Of course, if you add these to Heidegger's collected works, his Gesamtausgabe, at least to that extent, his works contain Nazism. I mean, that's kind of a tautology. If you add some Nazi text to a bunch of other texts, there's going to be some Nazism. But again, as I say, when you talk about Heidegger, or at least when these Europeans do, they tend to go over the top. Fay says, this is a quote, in order to preserve the future of philosophical thought, it is equally indispensable for us to inquire into the true nature of Heidegger's Gesamtausgabe, a collection of texts containing principles that are racist, eugenic, and radically deleterious to the existence of human reason. Such a work cannot continue to be placed in the philosophy section of libraries. Its place is rather in the historical archives of Nazism and Hitlerism.